Sometimes the headline says it all. Seattle restaurant suffers 25th break-in since 2020. The owner calls on the city leaders for action. When you heard me say 25th break-in, what was your first thought? Let's get into it. Here we go. Yeah, my first thought, obviously, was what in the F is this guy still doing running
tried to get
his
in
business
here this morning?
Like 25 break-ins, right? I mean, at what point do you just say, you know, this is not heading in the right direction. Seattle is not heading in the right direction, like so many other business owners. But this guy, he seems to still be making a profit. Risk-reward ratio is still working for him. He loves Seattle. He's a food guy, right? He's a chef. He's got a restaurant. Let's watch the video.
They tried to get in here this morning with a crowbar.
They're not exactly the repeat customers that Christian Chandler is looking for.
They cracked windows.
His Italian restaurant, Serafina, in Eastlake, suffering its 25th break-in since the start of 2020, leading to thousands of dollars in stolen liquor, wine,
Whatever they can get their hands on.
He says for almost 30 years, the restaurant saw just 2 attempted break-ins. But since the pandemic, it's become an expectation.
It's well over 6 figures in repairs and upgraded security that I've had to install just to keep the property safe and to keep the staff safe.
Security that helped deter this would-be thief, with bright lights turning on just moments after they busted inside.
This morning, they ran to exactly where we keep our server tip-outs.
He says that calls and emails to Seattle City Council, Seattle Police, and the mayor's office after past break-ins have either gone unanswered or without follow-ups to take action.
I don't know who else I can reach out to for help and assistance with this ongoing problem.
As he's done his part.
That's the issue. This is a judicial issue. There's nobody to reach out to. And the police, they don't have time for this kind of stuff. They're too understaffed. So what do? Well, you send off messages to your local officials and see where it goes, which is nowhere. No, I shouldn't say nowhere. Sarah Nelson on the city council did respond back, and we'll read about that.
To invest in security, Chandler is asking for at least more peace of mind from law enforcement.
More police on the streets, more police in this neighborhood, certainly, because, I mean, I've seen it with quite a few businesses on Eastlake.
All right, so 25 times. I want to kind of show you where we're talking about here, right? Here's the Space Needle. Here's Eastlake, and that's where I spend a lot of time in Seattle. Here's Serafina. This is the restaurant we are talking about. This is my beloved Eastlake Market. Now, my beloved Eastlake Market has an epic chef salad. And they've got a great selection of adult beverages, and it's a great market. It really is. The Starbucks recently viewed. This is the Starbucks that recently, one of, I think, 8 in Seattle that was closed. And when you've got a situation where a restaurant's been broken into 25 times and you're Starbucks corporate, even though you're making money on your location, one of the things you consider is what's going on in the neighborhood and how much is insurance going to cost to renew. This guy with 25 break-ins, he's not renewing insurance, right? He's not claiming most of this is insurance. He is literally paying for this out of pocket. His restaurant must be doing well. I know where this restaurant is. I've been by it a million times, but I've just, there's so many of those little places and you're like, gosh, should I eat there? And I tend not to eat in Seattle just because it's so expensive. And I no longer get food delivered from anybody in Seattle because delivery fees are the most expensive in the United States. So if you're a small business owner like this dude, just trying to keep your spot open is problematic at best, right? I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? Let's read the story here. Restaurant owner in Seattle's Eastlake neighborhood is fed up after suffering his 25th break-in. When do you say enough is enough? We're done? When do you say that? That's the question of the hour, right? I think I would have said it way earlier than that. Just, you know what? This isn't really going in the right direction. Maybe we call this good. Maybe, just maybe, we move this restaurant to somewhere else that's not quite so problematic. Now, since I've been hanging out in the East Lake neighborhood, because my boat is over there, right? And Lake Union is probably one of the most epic places to be around kind of the outdoors, because you've got seaplanes coming in, you've got Gasworks Park. In the summer, you've got the fireworks show. It's literally right there. There's so much going on. But break-ins in East Lake, in the business section of it, are kind of a known quantity. There's a whole bunch of break-ins because it's kind of surrounded by a bunch of residential, and criminals go there. I don't quite know the reason why. The break-ins there are on the regular. It's on the regular. Christian Chandler is the owner and head chef at Serafina, an Italian-inspired restaurant along East Lake Avenue that he's owned for over 3 decades. This guy's been at it a while because he doesn't look like he's that old. He said for the roughly 30 of those years, he had only experienced 2 break-in attempts. However, since the beginning of the pandemic, 25 break-ins. So what happened as of the pandemic? Well, we started to experience this massive surge of criminal activity because everybody was feeling locked down, and there was all this opportunity of, well, restaurants are closed down. It's go time, boys and girls. Let's go in and take that wine. Let's take whatever they've got in there, whatever they've got that we can sell. Just go in and break in. And then the back end of that, and that's what we're going to kind of focus on, is you've got a judicial system in Seattle that is just a revolving treadmill for criminals. We don't prosecute and incarcerate criminals. We just don't really do that. And we also don't have the police department to go after as many of these crimes as are happening. And the criminals know it. And they're like, hey, we can break in all day long, because even if I get busted, there's going to be no real recrimination. There's going to be no incarceration for me. So I'm going to roll the dice here and just keep seeing what happens. And so that's why you've got so many of these criminals, small group of criminals running around, going in, 3-foot long crowbar. This is not their first rodeo, right? Going in, breaking doors, grabbing stuff and going, because there aren't enough police to come out and actually, not prosecute, but investigate these crimes and then get the criminal system to prosecute them. That's not what we're doing in Seattle. We've got this whole anti-fascist, we love Antifa, we love socialism, we hate businesses, and we hate the cops. So given that as your backdrop, it's no wonder that criminals are like 25 break-ins. You betcha. I mean, that's what we're doing. And for a business owner to, come up with that, you're left with, okay, maybe it's time to turn in the keys to that building. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but the guy keeps going. So he's got reasons for why that would be. But at some point in time, you got to be taking a kind of an honest inventory of, what direction is this going in? And that's what I'm saying, is it's not going in the right direction. Bruce Harrell is going to tell you 10 ways from Sunday that things are getting better. Crime is dropping. Tell this guy that, right? Tell this guy that, hey, 25 break-ins, not getting better. I've, at my marina, I've had one of my neighbors they had their truck with the canopy, back window got bashed in. I have left computers in my car overnight in the parking lot. It's been okay, knock on wood. Never had anything stolen from the area where I've got my boat. Just haven't ever had any break-ins as far as that go. We've been told that other marinas have been broken into, but I personally haven't experienced that, but I know a lot of businesses have, and I know there are break-ins. But, me personally, as long as it doesn't happen to me, it's all good, right? It's well over 6 figures in repairs, upgraded security that I've had to install just to keep the property safe. Where's that end point? Where is that? You know what? That's the last damn time I'm going to deal with this. It's the last damn time. Where is that breaking point? Most recent crime occurred around 2:30 a.m. on Wednesday. Looks like professional job, 3-foot crowbars, and just boop, pop, right? Just Chandler said the would-be thief beelined it right where he keeps the tip-out folders for his employees, meaning his person had been heavily scoped out the business, so they'd been in there, they'd looked around, maybe they'd eaten there, who knows. However, security system kicked in. Enough is enough. I need some results from the people in charge in the city, stated Chandler. Okay, you're not going to get any, because even if they could do something, they're not going to be able to overturn the criminal justice system in Seattle. And we've got one that is heading more towards socialism than it is supporting what capitalism needs, which is for businesses to stay in business in order to make money. We've got Katie Wilson, who won in the primary by 10 points over incumbent Mayor Bruce Harrell. 10 points. 10 points. I mean, that is absolutely shocking. And Bruce Harrell has done an okay job kind of cobbling the bits and pieces of public safety and whatnot together. He's done a really good job at clearing out the homeless from downtown. But again, the criminal activity going on in downtown Seattle, the open air drug markets, people just running around doing their thing, is keeping a lot of tenants away. And this is one of those stories where you're like, 25 times? Oh yeah, let's go open up a new business in Seattle. It'll be great. 2 thumbs up. So getting back to enough is enough. I need some results from the people in charge in the city. What are you going to do? What are you going to ask them to do? You don't have enough cops. And even when cops arrest people, the judicial system is not going to incarcerate them. They're basically just going to send them out. They're going to put them through some diversion if they even get convicted. You've got a backward system. So there's nothing that the people in charge really have any control over. So, this is one of those situations where I would say most of these business owners that have been broken into, because they are operating a business in Seattle, they are more liberal than they are conservative. And they are having a very difficult time learning these lessons. I would never operate a business in Seattle. I shouldn't say that. A real estate business? Yeah, you're going to have a small little brokerage somewhere. All right, not a lot of exposure. You don't have a tip jar. You don't have that kind of stuff. Are they going to try and break in and steal your, your fax machine? Does anybody even have those anymore? So our guy here Chandler said he has reached out to Seattle City Council, including Council President Sarah Nelson, in addition to the police department, Mayor Bruce Harrell, about his situation. Well, they've got a million businesses screaming at them, hey, when are you going to do something? Right? So why would you think that your voice would be heard? It's not going to be heard. Well, it was. But he goes on to say, more police on the streets, more police in this neighborhood, certainly. What's that really going to do? Because even when they arrest these folks, the judges and the prosecutors, a guy's got 45 felony convictions. Let's just give him diversion. He'll be fine. He's a good person deep down. He's a good individual. You got justice reform. And that is what you've got in these big blue liberal cities. And goes on to say, because I've seen it with quite a few businesses on Eastlake. Yes, correct. This is an epidemic of crime. This is an epidemic of failure to support businesses and to support the constituents with public safety. But most of these business owners and most of these constituents, when you are in an area where they literally have signs up, Black Lives Matter. Let's see. What did Black Lives Matter do during the pandemic? Oh, yeah. They set cities on fire. They looted. They robbed. They accosted people. They basically destroyed their own cities, Seattle included, right? And you know what local officials did? It's not that bad. It's mostly peaceful. We've literally still got people defund the police. We've literally got people that have Black Lives Matter in their windows. There's one sign that I know that I just want to tear out of the person's house that is very close to where I am all the time over in Seattle. It's about a block away. When I look at that sign, I'm like, well, you get what you pay for. So if you want to live in a community like that supports domestic terrorism, it's the white people virtue signaling in Seattle. And if you're a business owner, you've probably supported a lot more liberals. You've supported a lot more progressives that have got you in this situation than you have voting for Orange Man bad. That even if this, I don't know about this individual owner. I have no idea. I haven't interviewed him. I haven't talked to him, but the vast majority of people that I see interviewed, they go down that road because otherwise, why in the world would they be owning a business in Seattle? You just wouldn't tolerate that. If you are a Republican, if you are a conservative, you're not going to have a business in Seattle. You're not going to have a business in Seattle. You're not going to have a business in Portland. You're not going to have a business in California. You know what I mean? You might want to have one in California I shouldn't say California because there's a lot of really red areas in California. I should say in LA, in San Francisco, in one of these big libtard run cities, right? More police on the streets, more police in the neighborhood. Okay. Yeah. But that doesn't even really matter. Here is what Sarah Nelson sent back. Mr. Chandler, and she's our city council, and she is also, she and her husband own Fremont Brewing, which has some amazing beer. They've got a Pilsner and a lager that, their Pilsner, 2 thumbs up. It's really good. She took down his contact information to reach out to him. She also offered this statement. Mr. Chandler, I am so sorry to hear of your 25th break-in. ! As a small business owner myself, I share your frustration about being repeatedly victimized by crime. And as chairman of economic development and the impact of crime on small business is one of my top concerns. But she's a business owner and she will most likely also lose her political campaign, her position on the city council, because everything is going so far left. It's going so far left that even moderates like Sarah Nelson and Bruce Harrell, I think they're going to get shellacked in this upcoming election. They're going to get shellacked by people that have no business being on the city council, no business being mayor, but because this is all pushback to Orange Man bad, that anybody who's not ultimate far left, like in New York City, anybody who's not ultimate far left, they're not going to do all that well because there's this big uprising. Well, we can't afford things, so let's go with the Democratic Socialist of America candidate, and I'm sure it should work out fine. About every 20 years, we need to have a bunch of these nut jobs get elected, right? Well, I think in 2020, what we're coming up with in this next election cycle, especially here in Seattle and in New York City, we're going to see what that looks like. And get out the popcorn. Because we're going to have podcasts for days, weeks. Yeah. It's hard enough to take on the financial risk of starting and growing a business, especially with increasingly narrow margins in Seattle. And on top of this, Seattle taxes the F out of small business. And moving forward, all leadership is saying, yeah, we're going to need to tax businesses even more. Even more. Yeah, because businesses are leaving, so that income stream is narrowing. So, let alone dealing with the financial hardship of crime. Council has no authority over Seattle Police Department operations. Okay. Yep. But I've done everything I can to legislative to bring Seattle Police Department staffing levels back up. That is an uphill battle that is going to take decades to get the number of cops back to where we need it. And who wants to be a cop in Seattle, in Portland, in San Francisco? Who wants that? What kind of glutton for punishment wants to walk into a job position that people automatically just hate you, scream at you, tell you that you should die, tell you that they hope your family dies? Over at the protests, you see that all day long because you're dealing with people. Yeah, anybody that does a No Kings protest, they're just delusional, right? They're Orange Man bad, and they're delusional, and they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. TDS. They just do, because clearly there's no kings. And if there was a king, it wouldn't allow you to have your silly little million-person protest, right? Against things that don't exist. Yeah. So that includes initiating hiring bonuses, reforming the way applications are processed, and ensuring officer compensation is competitive. Seattle has come a long way as far as that goes, but that's just policing. And policing isn't going to do it, because if the criminals, if they recognize that the world is still their oyster, which they currently do, obviously, this story, then they're just going to keep doing what they're doing, and everybody's going to point fingers and, hey, no control over the cops, but here's what I have done. All right, Mayor Bruce Harrell, we're working hard, but we've got more work to do. And then you've got this new candidate coming in, Democratic Socialist of America, and she's probably going to win. Guess what? That's not going to be good for business. You're already up a creek without a paddle, right? Businesses are. So what are you expecting? I don't know. You can't expect much, because your vote to bring in liberal after liberal, progressive after progressive to Seattle, because Seattle's so progressive, you're living the after effect of that. You are living with the results. I vote for Republicans consistently because they have business interests at heart. Democrats, most of the time, don't. They have misguided compassion for people, and that just, you might as well just pull out a gun and shoot yourself in the foot and watch yourself bleed and go, God, that hurt. Somebody get me to the hospital. I realize that this is of little comfort to you now, but I want you to know that I hear you and I care. All right? That and $1 will get you a ride on the Seattle light rail, I think. Might be more. No, it's $3, right? Is it $3? I think it's $3 and you get a day pass. All right. That and $3. I hear what Sarah Nelson is saying. She is saying, we know Seattle, we know. And she is as moderate as you're going to get. And she's probably not going to get elected. I haven't followed her case recently. Spokesperson wrote via email, police report is not completed yet. We'll get to it when we can. Obviously, this is not just an isolated incident. You've got thieves steal mail, notary seals, and credit cards from Eastlake Mail Service. Now is September 2025. And then we move on to, all right, this is, I'm going to do a full podcast on this, but this is our Democratic Socialist of America candidate here. She is 43 years old. Every couple of months, her parents, who are, and she's never owned a business. She's never really done anything where she's had a job for as long as a year. She didn't graduate from college. She went to Oxford and bailed out to travel with her boyfriend. She's got a baby. It doesn't sound like she has a husband or a partner. She's got a baby. And every couple of months, her parents send her $2,200 per month for childcare so that she can do this stuff. Katie Wilson can barely afford to live in Seattle. That's why she wants to be mayor. She can't afford to live in Seattle. Her parents subsidize her, and she is 43 years old. 43 years old. Wilson, 43, the populist candidate for Seattle mayor, wears basic button-ups, yada, yada. I'm very focused on results, very pragmatic. But not included in the narrative, Wilson tells in the campaign trail, is how she affords this expensive city. The answer is simple and arguably very Seattle. Her parents, professors in New York State, give her money. Daycare money. It's around $2,200 a month. I'm sure a lot of other people would enjoy getting $2,200 per month from their parents so that they can pay for daycare. In Seattle, as in New York, a mayoral race turns on generational change. We've got a whole bunch of millennials and Generation Y that are really upset that things have gotten expensive to the point where they can't buy a house and they can barely afford to live in Seattle. And they can't really work out what to do. So they're going to vote for a socialist because that's going to solve things. Because, communism, socialism has always worked so well for the cities and countries that have brought it in. Look at Cuba. Look at getting groceries in Cuba. Yeah. So this is probably who we're going to have for our next mayor. We're going to have her and not him. 67-year-old dude who's, this is his 5th campaign. He knows what he's doing, but he's not making the big changes, and he really can't do anything about affordability. The costs are all baked in to the city because layer after layer after layer of nonsense has been put in there, and now you've got a super expensive city. Housing's expensive. You got taxes out the ass in order to cover for all these social programs that you've got going on, and there's only one way that it's going to go. More taxes, more regulation. Because that's how big blue, liberal cities run. Progressive cities run. So how's this going to move forward for a restaurant owner? Not necessarily in the right direction. Not in the right direction. Harold Wilson enter home stretch of surprisingly tight Seattle mayor race. Progressive activist Katie Wilson emerged from the August primary as the favorite by 10 points. 10 points. So Seattle's going to have a socialist mayor. New York City's going to have a socialist mayor. We're going to have a handful of others. Again, get out the popcorn because we're already seeing the end results of what progressive and liberal and Democrat policy does. 25 break-ins in 5 years, and everybody's looking around going, what do we do? Mr. Mayor, come help me. He can't help you. City Council, come help me. I can't help you. We just read they don't have any control over the police department. Police department is understaffed by hundreds of police officers. Because remember, during the pandemic, defund the police was still a thing? Yeah. How's that working out for you? All the numbnuts that supported that in Seattle. How is that working out? 25 break-ins? That's a direct result. Direct result. This is what you get when you go down these progressive policies. And so why wouldn't we just tee up a socialist candidate and just see what happens? Again, get out the popcorn. It's going to be great. Podcasts for days, weeks, months. It could be forever. It could be forever. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell. I'll see you on the next episode because guaranteed it's going to get good. Here we go. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.